Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about something that's supposed to be secret, communications used by police, military, and intelligence agencies all over the world. But what if they aren't so secure after all?
It really all comes down to this one question, doesn't it? A question that's at the heart of a pretty troubling new discovery. See, when it comes to critical communications, you expect top-tier security. But what happens when you find out that security was deliberately weakened? Not just once, but twice. So, what's at the core of this latest problem? Well, it's this massive gap between what was promised and what was actually delivered. An expensive end-to-end encryption system, which was supposed to fix an older problem, was sold with this promise of robust 128-bit security. But in the real world, that key gets crunched down to just 56 bits, which makes it way easier to crack.
Okay, so to really get what's going on here, we have to rewind the tape a little bit. This new issue with the fix only really makes sense when you understand the original flaw it was supposed to solve. A flaw that researchers didn't mince words about. They called it an intentional backdoor built right into the radio standard itself.
This whole story really starts back in the 90s with the creation of the Tetra radio standard. It was used for decades, and everyone assumed it was secure. Then, bam, in 2023, researchers from a firm called Midnight Blue drop a bombshell, revealing this secret weakness. And now, they've found out the recommended solution is also weak. It's one thing after another.
At the heart of that first big revelation in 2023 was this one algorithm, TE1. Now, this was specifically designed for radios that were being sold outside of Europe to customers like foreign police forces, militaries, and even critical infrastructure operators.
On paper, this was supposed to use a standard 80-bit key for encryption. And, at the time, that was a pretty respectable level of security. Nothing to sneeze at.
But here's the catch. The researchers found this hidden feature that just deliberately chopped that key size down to only 32 bits. And you gotta understand, the difference between an 80-bit key and a 32-bit key isn't just a little bit weaker, it's exponentially weaker. We're talking the difference between a flimsy screen door lock and a massive bank vault.
So how much weaker are we talking about? Well, the research team at Midnight Blue was able to crack communications that were supposedly secured by this thing in under a minute. Yeah, using just a standard, off-the-shelf laptop. That's not secure by anyone's definition.
Okay, so you have this first flaw. It gets exposed. The standards body recommends a fix, an end-to-end encryption solution. But now that fix has been found to be flawed too. It just raises the obvious question, right? Who is responsible for this whole mess?
There are two key organizations right in the middle of this. First, you've got ETSI, the European group that made the original, flawed Tetra standard. And then you have TCCA, the association that came up with the end-to-end encryption fix that, also has this new weakness.
Now, ETSI tries to defend itself, saying that the flawed fix isn't technically part of their standard. But that line gets really blurry really fast. The two groups work very closely together, and as it turns out, a lot of the same people are involved in both organizations. And this is where the story gets really perplexing. Why would anyone build security systems, especially for police and military use, and then deliberately make them weaker? You have to ask, was this a bug, some kind of mistake, or was this a feature?
The official line from a representative for both of these groups is that the encryption was weakened to comply with European export control regulations for tech sold to certain countries. But this wasn't exactly broadcast to the buyers. In fact, the researchers only found one mention of it, buried in a confidential product document from 2006 that had been leaked online.
The standards bodies pretty much argued that the buyers, who are often government security agencies, should have known what they were getting. Their argument is basically that these are sophisticated clients, and they'd be expected to do their homework and be fully aware of what the system could and couldn't do.
But the researchers who actually found these flaws, they're not buying that explanation. They're skeptical. I mean, their point is, why would any government spend millions of dollars for a premium, supposedly secure communication system if they knew they were only getting security that's barely consumer grade? It just doesn't add up.
But the real-world danger here goes way beyond just somebody listening in. A weak key is one thing. That's bad enough. But the researchers found a second vulnerability. And this one might actually be even more dangerous. See, this second flaw isn't about cracking the encryption.
It's about manipulating the messages themselves. An attacker could grab a real encrypted command and then just replay it hours later. Or even worse, they could inject totally fake messages into the network. I mean, just imagine the kind of chaos that could cause in the middle of a police or military operation.
And here is the absolute kicker with this second flaw. While the weak key problem only affects some users, this message injection vulnerability is different. The researchers say it's a fundamental problem with how the protocol was designed. And that means it affects every single user of this TCCA end-to-end encryption solution, no matter how strong their key is.
So who are these users? We're not talking about some small niche product here. This is police forces across Europe, militaries from Poland to Syria, and even intelligence services in places like Lebanon and Saudi Arabia. This system is also protecting critical infrastructure, pipelines, railways, electric grids. The scope is massive, and the stakes could not be higher.
So in the end, this whole story just leaves us with this deeply unsettling question. When the very systems that are designed and sold for top-tier security have these deliberate, hidden weaknesses built into them, it just shatters the foundation of trust. If the line that's advertised as secure isn't actually secure, what can you really trust?